Number one boba boy reporting for duty.
It's you. Your new title.
My new title. I've spared you all from listening to me slurping the last few drops and mini taros from my bubble tea, so you're welcome, you little spookies.
Yep. Unless you
Um,
like that sort of thing.
I
I'm
guess. Does
sure there's an
anyone like that?
ASMR.
I don't know. You know that thing where people like hate hearing that, like have a phobia of hearing other people eat?
Yes.
Which I think is kind of an obnoxious phobia. Sorry, but like no one likes the sound of someone chewing with their mouth open. It's
No.
gross, like
Yeah.
objectively. But
Uh-huh.
like a phobia feels like a bridge
That's,
too far.
yeah.
But I think everyone has that with like slurping the bottom of your like Diet Coke with a straw or whatever. It's not
Yeah.
a nice sound.
No. It's
Um
true.
anyway, well, I'm Olivia.
Number one boba girl.
No,
And I'm Amy.
and this
And this
is
is Girls
Girls Gone
Gone
Spooky.
Spooky.
Um
And it's
Number one
funny
boba girl.
because I have like this lip smacking thing drives me insane.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Only when Dave does it. Anyone else can do it. If Dave's doing it, I can't stand it.
I mean, I think that's a thing though. Like things that your
Yeah,
partner does that you're
yeah.
just like,
Shut
ugh,
up.
God,
Just
shut
stop.
up. Quiet
Yeah,
you.
stop
Yeah,
it.
of course. Well, because you spend more time together than with anybody else. So it's like, yeah,
Yeah,
the shit they do is gonna irk you.
true.
I do feel, Noah and I have talked about this at length, that this idea of like the ick is like kind of exclusively a women's issue. Like he's
Yeah.
like, you've pissed me off before, and like you
Mhm.
annoy me sometimes, but I don't get the ick. Like he's like,
Yeah,
it's so dramatic that like you what you
yeah.
just want to break up with me now because I like whatever like blew my nose
Yeah,
wrong, and I'm like, yeah, a little like I'm not gonna.
right. That is kind of true.
It's a little
Yeah,
dramatic. It's a bit of like an overreaction, I'd say.
yeah. I have
But
asked Dave that question if I've ever given him the ick, and he
mhm.
says, it only gives me the ick if you ask me if I've given you the ick, because he hates the ick.
Yeah, he does
So,
too. He's like, can we just stop calling it
not,
that? Like, just
yeah,
say it's irritating or something.
yeah,
And I'm like, no, I'm gonna
yeah,
keep using the ick.
yeah, yeah. So,
So that is
you
the
know,
ick, apparently, for
yep,
men, is calling
yes,
it the ick.
yeah, that's good to
Anyway,
know.
a little birdie told me
Yeah.
you may have some recommendations for us.
Well, not necessarily recommendations, but just updates that will be old news by
Oh,
the time
okay.
people are listening to this.
Oh, whatever.
That did you see there's going to be season 4 of Ted Lasso
Yes,
with
I
a
cannot
women's team?
wait.
I'm so
Yes,
excited. Oh my god.
I
And
can't
then
wait.
the other one, I'm going to start reading tonight the new Hunger Games book.
Oh my
And
God,
I
what?
honestly didn't know that there was a new one coming out, and suddenly here it is.
Wait, it's
So
like part of, it's not just a trilogy? There's another one? Or is it like a prequel or
it's,
something?
I think it's a prequel, like with
I'm looking it up.
the other one that they did. But I think it's
Oh, the
about
Blood and
Haymitch.
Snow or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh.
Mhm.
Okay, so there's The Hunger Games, there's Catching Fire, there's Mockingjay, there's The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Is that it?
Yes.
No, that's
No,
2020.
that was a great book, though. I liked it.
I didn't read that.
Really?
Sunrise of the Reaping?
Yes, that's the one.
What the heck?
Yeah, are you behind on the Hunger Games times, I
I
guess?
guess so. Let me look at my Goodreads. I like feel like this doesn't make sense to me. Like I feel wronged by this. Oh
Yeah.
shit, I'm not signed in on here. What the heck, man?
Oh God, come on.
Why don't my devices talk to each other better? Do better, Apple. Do
It's a new computer. Still
better.
figuring it out.
Oh, sorry if that made a loud noise.
It wasn't bad.
Okay, good.
But
Don't
yeah.
want to harm your precious little ears, listeners. No, I'm just kidding. Such a bitch.
Yeah.
This is Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Okay, did I read this? Nope. Haven't even listed it as want to read. Okay, and
You
then what's this
should.
new one called? Sunrise
Sunrise
on the
on the
Reaping. Mm-mm. Okay, want to read. Oh, I started, speaking of books, I
Yeah.
started Powerful, which is the
Oh.
Powerless from Adina and
Oh yeah.
Mak Mak Makio Makoto. There's a character
I
named
don't remember.
Makoto.
I
Did you
don't
read it
remember that
though?
at all. No, I didn't. I don't know
Yeah,
why.
it's some character that I don't think is in the other storyline. So it's
Oh,
like a brand new
weird.
character, which is kind of fun. And he's like hot.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay.
Okay. So that's Adina's love interest then.
I guess so. We'll see.
Mix something. Huh.
With something to hide for sure. So,
Mhm.
um, okay, also, sorry, we're really going deep on the entertainment. Skip ahead if you're just
Mhm.
not interested in this.
Yep.
Um, I promise we do have scary stories. Um,
Yes.
we started watching Temptation Island last night. Have you ever seen
We have
that
been
show?
watching it too.
That's so funny. How far
Yeah.
are you?
Like embarrassingly far. I think we're
Oh,
on the 7th episode or something.
did
We
it
didn't
just
start
stop?
last night. We started over the weekend.
Okay, we
So,
just started last night. We watched an episode because our other show that we're watching like wasn't loading for some reason. So we're like, okay, well, I'll just like switch to Netflix. And it is so stupid good. You know what I mean?
yes.
Like these people are
Yeah.
like, we're ready to commit. And I'm like, so you're gonna go cheat on each other? Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And I turned to Noah,
Yes.
I was like, would you cheat on me on Temptation Island? And he was like, shut the fuck up. He's like,
Like,
no, we
no.
wouldn't go
Yeah.
on Temptation Island. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's suspend belief for a minute. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
we're not gonna do that.
Yeah. Not even entertain the
Just cruising for a
question.
fight, you know?
Yeah. But
Oh
just you
god.
wait what you're gonna see
Oh,
if you
Grant
keep
is a
watching.
fuck. I can just immediately, I saw him and I was like, you Andy Samberg looking ass
Yeah.
bitch. He
Yeah.
does look like Andy Samberg, doesn't he?
He does. Yes. I can see
I
it.
was like, that is a hot Jewish man. And Noah was like, why do you think he's a Jew? Because he's got a big nose? And I was like, well, yeah, kinda. But
Yeah.
also, he looks like Andy Samberg.
Yeah, he does.
For the
But
record, my
all of
boyfriend's a
them.
Jew, so I'm not an anti-Semite, I swear.
No. No, definitely not. But yeah, let me know when you keep watching because
Oh, I will. I'm
I
gonna
like
live tweet
have
you now.
physical reactions to the things that these men do. And I'm just
Is it
like,
mainly the
oh,
men? I mean, I just was like, the women do gross stuff too,
it's,
right? Tell me the women also do gross stuff.
I mean, I think the
Not
women
really.
sort of open up to the guys that are tempting them. They're like, let me
Mm-hmm.
lay out all of my grievances on you.
Oh, like emotional
But the
cheating.
yes,
The guys are
exactly.
just
But the
fucking.
guys are yes. Yep. So yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're truly not spoiling anything either because in the very first episode, they do like a preview of the full season
Yeah.
and it like shows someone fucking. So I
Right.
was like, y'all are cheating. All right, got it.
Yeah. We know what we're in for from the
We
very
know what
start.
we're in for.
Yeah.
Okay, should we read
Well,
some spooky Easter stories? He is risen.
I guess so. Yes, he is risen. Yeah. We actually didn't
Okay.
even explain that that's the theme for today.
No, it's Easter this coming Sunday, so happy Easter to those who celebrate. We have scary stories.
Yeah. That's what we do on this show.
I don't know why that came from such like a hesitant space, but yeah, we have scary stories as per usual for a holiday episode.
Yes.
I have 3.
Yeah, I
I
have
got
two.
three. Should I go first and we
So,
alternate?
sure. That sounds good.
Beautiful. That sounds good. Okay. You ready for this?
Yep.
We go in order from like weirdest to creepiest, I think.
Okay. Okay.
All
I
right.
love it.
Let's
Let's
go,
hear it.
baby. This is from Manon Lyset, Lyset. I'm not even going to read the titles. You're just going to dive right in.
Yeah, give us a surprise.
Yeah. Okay. I woke up this morning to the sound of giggling coming from the living room. Crap, I grumbled. Hmm? Groaned Clara. We forgot to set the alarm, I said, looking at the bag of Easter chocolates in the corner. We still needed to set up the egg hunt. Clara rolled over and mumbled, We'll tell the kids the Easter bunny got held up, busy racing a turtle or something. Someone had to do damage control, and I could tell Clara wasn't going to get out of bed anytime soon. I tried going in for a kiss, but when I saw dried saliva crusted around her mouth, I changed my mind. Besides,
Ew.
she was already snoring by the time my face reached hers. Sighing, I left my cozy blanket and reached for yesterday's jeans, which were lying unceremoniously in a pile of dirty clothes next to my bed. As I stuck my legs clumsily through the openings, I noticed the clock. 3:16 a.m. My kids were never up that early, even on Easter. I turned to my wife. Babe, you're the best, I said in a mock feminine voice. Thanks for taking care of it, you sexy thing. Okay, I might have been a little irked at her. As I was about to exit the room, I heard a sound outside my door. At first, I thought it was David's padded Cookie Monster slippers, which I want.
Yep.
But the taps were followed by a clicking sound, not unlike that of a dog's nails hitting the linoleum floor. I hoped the kids hadn't let the neighbors' flea infested mutt inside again. I'd deduct half their Easter chocolate if that was the case. I knelt down and peered under the door to try and confirm my suspicions without letting the dog in. Fleas in the bedroom? No thanks. What I saw made me do a double take, which resulted in my slapping my cheek against the floor. It was no dog, that's for sure. This animal had elongated black feet, half covered in black patchy fur, half in blistered dark skin. On the edge of its bony toes were long claws clicking against the ground. What the fuck is that? I said to myself. My words carried through the paper-thin walls and startled the creature. It hopped out of sight, and I could hear it tap-tap-tapping all the way down the hall. Meanwhile, the turbo engine snores continued behind me, unperturbed. I sat on my rump in stunned silence, wondering what kind of mangy animal had found its way into my home, and how it had managed to do so in the first place. Judging by the size of its feet, it couldn't have made it through the cat's door, unless it was a raccoon. Those jerks could get in anywhere. I was trying to come up with a plan of attack when I heard the kids giggling again. A pang of panic zipped through me like one of those prank handshake buzzers. The kids were not safely tucked away in their beds. They were out there with God knows what filthy animal had snuck inside. I grabbed the bat my wife kept on her side of the bed and dashed out of the room. A warm and wet substance was waiting for me on the other side of the door, which I only noticed after stepping in it. Cringing, I looked down, hoping it wasn't another fur ball. The floor was covered in a thick, brownish liquid, and my first thought was blood. I could see it leading all the way down the hallway, so either it belonged to the creature or one of my kids was bleeding profusely, and both options terrified me, especially since wounded creatures tend to be more violent. I prayed David and Becky were all right. Sidestepping the streaky liquid, I ran towards the living room. Becky, David, are you okay? I shouted in an alarmed tone as I rounded the corner. It took me a few minutes to take in the scene. Moments, not minutes. And I did so in multiple stages. First, I ignored the creature entirely, scanning the kids for any injuries. Next, I tried to figure out if they were in any immediate danger, say, about to get mauled by a rabid mountain lion or something. Finally, I searched for the animal I had spied from under my bedroom door. The kids seemed fine and happy, nothing was actively moving towards them, and the creature was, oh God, David was sitting on the horrid thing. The monster loosely resembled a hare, but it was far from an adorable woodland creature. Since it was seated, it was hard to gauge its exact size, but if I were to put a number to it, I would say it was about 4.5 feet tall.
Whoa.
It emitted a strange and powerful odor like chocolate laced with vinegar. The scent was so strong it made my eyes water. Its body was grotesquely lean, like a starving animal in the middle of winter. Its fur was patchy, rigid, and looked to be covered in melted chocolate. The substance dripped off at the ends of its twisted whiskers and seemed to perpetually ooze out of its mouth. Its two buck teeth were rotten and chipped. Its ears looked mangled and were gnarled off at the ends. Its eyes were the worst, though. You know those creepy sugar eyes on Easter chocolates? That's exactly what they looked like. Soulless, unblinking, cartoonish eyes.
Ew.
David was sitting on this thing's lap. He had a big grin on his face, petting along its disheveled, gooey fur. His fingers made the sound of a slug racing down a slip and slide. Look, Daddy, the Easter Bunny's here, said David. Becky reached a hand to pet the thing's decrepit form. He's so soft, she chirped. Something told me they were not seeing the grotesque figure for what it truly was. I knew my kids. The sight of a cartoon monster would give them nightmares for weeks. There was no way they'd be so calm if they realized what they were playing with. Becky, David, come here, I told them as calmly as I could. But Daddy, we're playing with the Easter Bunny, answered my daughter. I held my hands out to my children, trying my best not to let my growing panic show. I didn't know what the beast would do if it sensed danger, and I didn't want to freak my kids out. The rabbit's head turned towards me slowly, but it was impossible to tell what those unfocused eyes were looking at exactly. It wrapped its short arms around my boy in a tight hug, and I knew what it was thinking. It had no intention of giving him back. My fingers tightened around my back. Becky Matilda Carter, come here this instant, I ordered, my voice stern this time. My daughter complied, but gave me a bit of a pout. I didn't care. I needed to get her to safety, even if that meant looking like the bad guy. The rabbit hissed in response. Go to your room and don't open the door unless it's me or Mom, okay? I said. But Dad, she protested. Becky, now, I barked. Head held down, Becky dragged herself down the hall, and I waited while my heart thrashed wildly in my chest until I heard her bedroom door shut. For a split second, I felt relieved, but then the fear came flooding back when I returned my attention to the Easter Bunny. He was still hissing, chocolate syrup slowly drizzling along the top of my son's head. David, sport, can you come here? I asked, hoping he'd be able to squeeze out of the creature's bony arms. I took a step towards them, and the creature reacted by growling loudly and gripping my son tighter. David started crying. I stopped in my tracks, unsure of what to do. It was a standoff. Daddy, you're scaring the Easter Bunny. He won't give us any candy if you scare him, pleaded my son, as he continued to be pelted with more and more chocolate. That's not the Easter Bunny. Come here and we'll talk about it, okay? I requested, spreading my arms out to my child. Daddy will give you more candy than Halloween and Easter combined, okay? David smiled and tried to get off the rabbit. The creature went absolutely wild, thrashing its head about in every direction while hissing and growling nonstop. Its thick brown saliva came flooding out of its mouth quicker than before, rapidly enveloping my son. I had to do something, but footsteps behind me caught my attention. Daddy, is the Easter Bunny sick? Asked my daughter, tears in her eyes. I think she was finally seeing the same thing I was. I didn't have time to scold Becky for coming back. In the moment it took for me to turn towards her, the creature managed to fully encase my son in a thick veil of melted chocolate. I could hear him gurgling and gagging as it quickly hardened around him. Let go of my kid, you son of a bitch, I screamed, running towards this creature. My whole being cried out for an unrestrained act of violence. No one messes with my kids and gets away with it, after all. I reared the baseball bat back and ran forward to swing at the creature. As I approached the monster, something strange happened to me. In an instant, all the anger seemed to evaporate from me. The sounds of my son gurgling, the creature hissing, my daughter crying, all just disappeared. I could hear the chirps of spring birds and what sounded like a pleasant stream in the distance. In front of me stood a large, soft, white bunny with a basket full of eggs. I felt calm and at peace. If it wasn't for the fantastic force of physics known as inertia, I might have fallen victim to the illusion. As luck would have it, however, my action was already being executed, and my swing successfully followed through, striking the creature square across the head. An unearthly crack echoed in the living room. My stomach twisted with worry. Hopefully I hadn't hit my son by accident. The next thing I knew, the bunny and its devilish counterpart were gone. In its place was a tall, hollow, and headless chocolate bunny. David was still encased in a cocoon of chocolate, but I quickly freed him while my daughter sobbed nearby. Thankfully, he was okay. I held him in my arms as though cradling a baby, feeling overwhelmingly grateful that both my children had survived. Once we had all calmed down, I started cleaning up the mess. In the corner of my living room, I found a pile of crushed chocolate, which I knew was the rabbit's head. The thing that really got to me, though, were its eyes. You know how I said they were solid sugar? As much as they crept me out while they were attached to him, they managed to completely horrify me when I found them lying amidst the rubble. I wasn't looking at fake candy eyes anymore. I was looking at appalling, stomach turning, biologically accurate round eyeballs, just like the ones in a high school science class. Now, I can't say for sure whether what I saw was the real Easter Bunny or some sort of demon masquerading as one. Either way, I don't think I'll ever eat Easter chocolate again. Not now that I know what it's made of. Blech.
Weird.
So weird.
That's
I was
really
reading it and I
scary.
was like, it's kind of funny, but it's also
Hmm.
like very creepy. Because
Yeah.
all of these, like the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunnies, Santa Claus, like they all come into your house. Like
Right. Yeah.
it's kind of demonic.
It is a little. Yeah.
Hmm.
Even though
So,
they're invited, it's like you still
which
don't know.
I think is worse.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I don't
just let it
know.
happen.
It's, yeah, creepy as hell. Anyway,
Very
your turn.
scary. Okay. I also quickly want to say to anyone
Mhm.
watching this, I'm sorry that you have to watch me blowing my nose, but
Oh.
we're in a dire allergy situation.
Oh, yeah,
So
brutal.
leave me be, please.
Leave me be.
Okay. So, which one do I start with? I have, these are not Easter themed, and they're both really weird.
Ooh,
So,
okay. I like weird.
let's start with this one. This is from Eclosion K2. So,
Okay. I'm
mm,
ready.
it says, a new neighbor moved in next door. Everyone swears he's lived here for years. So, everyone at the potluck was cracking jokes and elbowing this tall guy I'd never seen before, some mysterious, pale, Slavic looking man named Tony. Dee Dee brought her usual 24-pack from the brewery, and somehow Tony was given the first beer from the case, a privilege I'd never once received. Bitter. Then,
Hell's sake.
yeah. Then I saw Jess, our building manager, challenge Tony to a game of darts with her son. They looked like experts when they played, as if Jess always did this with Tony. Except she didn't. I'd never seen Jess or her son play darts. It was all very weird. I swam through the rec room, ignoring the Super Bowl noise on the TV. I almost said superb owl without even thinking about it.
I know, I was thinking,
um,
what were you about to say?
superb owl is what I was about to say.
Well,
Um,
that's correct also.
mhm. Yeah,
We'll
so
accept
Super
both
Bowl.
answers.
Super Bowl noise on the TV, and individually asked my neighbors who this Tony guy was. All I got were laughs and reminders of all the great things he'd done around our building. Tony? He's so handy. He fixed the pressure in my sink once. Used to be a plumber. Oh, such a nice guy. He gave $100 for my daughter's bat mitzvah. Did you know that? His 4-layer cake at the Christmas party was incredible. Remember the icing? I did not remember the icing. I'd been a decade-long resident of this 12-plex and attended almost all of our monthly parties in the rec room. I could tell you the names of all the residents and which suite they lived in. Tony did not live in any of them. Why was everyone pretending that he did? Eventually, I built up the courage to do what had to be done. I cracked open a beer, took a big swig, and then walked up to Tony with an open palm. Hey, pal. Nice to meet you. I'm Ignatius. What an interesting choice.
Okay.
Tony raised an eyebrow and cracked a laugh. Nice to meet you, Iggy. I'm Anthony. Is this a, how you say, role play? This is how you say.
Is this a, how you say?
Role
Also, I
play?
like that he's like a Slavic guy named Tony.
Tony. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe Anthony's a common Slavic name, but it's giving Italian.
Yes, it totally
It's
is.
giving bada
Yeah.
da boopy.
It absolutely is. And yeah, he says, I couldn't place the accent, somewhere between Budapest and Moscow. So, not Italy, but
Mm-mm. You mean
I'm,
Budapest?
yes, sorry about that.
I just watched a
Budapest.
video on Instagram of like people who refuse, like they insist on using the correct pronunciation, which I'm sure is also still not correct, but they used Budapest as an example. So I was like, yeah, in Budapest. And they were like, sorry, where? And they're like, oh, you mean Budapest?
God, it's so obnoxious
So
sometimes,
obnoxious.
even though, yeah, it's respectful to get it right. So I get it.
Yeah, but also chill.
Yeah, just relax.
Yeah.
So,
I had to pull it on you, you know?
yeah, thank you. Keep me
You're
in line.
welcome. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So somewhere between Budapest and Moscow. Moscow? How do they say?
Probably. I have no idea.
Yeah, who knows? Okay, anyway. A role play? No, I don't believe we've met before. Tony chuckled again and lightly punched my shoulder. Always a funny guy, huh? Book any new roles? My last auditions have been pretty unsuccessful the past few months, but this was not the time to discuss that. No, I'm being serious, Tony. I don't think we've met. How long have you lived here? Tony giggled and clapped his hands. Oh man, you are very convincing, you know. I'm not. This isn't a joke. He dragged Dee Dee into the conversation. Iggy's doing a great performance. Check him out. She cracked a new beer. Iggy, new stand up? No, guys, this isn't. I'm not doing a bit. I took a step away from them both, gesturing at the pale stranger. I don't know Tony. I've never met him. Dee Dee narrowed her eyes and drank her beer. Is this like anti-humor or something? Not funny. Flustered, I walked away and grabbed the first person I could find. Jess. She was mid-conversation with Marcello, who was giving her son a piggyback ride. She spun around, startled. Iggy? Jess, this isn't a joke. I'm seriously kind of worried. I don't remember Tony at all. Everyone says they remember him living here, but I do not. Do you remember Tony? Please tell me. Yeah, of course I remember Tony. She looked at me with a tilted head. For how long? I don't know. The whole time I've lived here, so 7 years? 7 years? No fucking way. No, that's not right. What's not right, Iggy? Dee Dee and Tony came over looking really concerned. Everything okay? I lifted my hands. I was completely dumbfounded by how all of this was happening. Utterly flabbergasted. Were all of my neighbors just fucking with me? I didn't want to work myself up any further, so I let it go. You know what? Sorry, guys. I'm a little drunk. All my neighbors stared at me, unconvinced. There was a lull in the room, an icy silence. Dee Dee took another sip of beer. By a little, do you mean a lot drunk? Everyone laughed. The tension broke instantly. Tony even gave a little clap. Iggy, you always a funny guy, man. Every time.
You always a funny guy, man.
I'm not going to attempt to do a Slavic
No,
accent.
definitely not.
I can picture it in my head, though.
Yeah. Use your mind's ears,
Yes,
everyone.
Exactly. So I left the party early. I didn't really know what else to say. I was a little embarrassed, but mostly frustrated and angry. How is this possible? Am I missing something? Maybe I'd been hit with some kind of selective amnesia. Maybe I bonked my head somewhere and happened to erase the root memory of some random European neighbor from my building.
Him being so European is just like extra funny for some reason.
Yeah, like that's his main identifier.
So funny.
But when I returned home, I knew that wasn't the case. Next to my apartment, 12, where there should have been a cramped sliding door leading into the utility closet, was now in its place a simple mahogany door, much like my own. And above it, the numbers read 13. No way, this is fucked. I touched the door. It felt real, the doorknob brass, the numbers plastic. Bolting into my own place, I locked myself inside. I could feel the minute vibrations of an oncoming panic attack course through my torso. I exhaled over and over until the feeling lessened a bit. It's okay. I'm okay. Let's think about this. I was inside the utility closet this morning, recording power usage numbers for the Strata. I don't know what that is. Which meant I should have video evidence. I unlocked my phone and scrolled through my most recent clips. Sure enough, I found a video from this morning. The camera panned across the power meters, recording the kilowatt hours. 10, 11, 12 meters. Then the camera lifted up, showing the exit into the hall. From a skewed angle, I could see my door. I could see my door in this video. This video, which was recorded from inside the utility closet, which is now replaced by Unit 13. I tossed my phone aside and held my temples. What the hell is happening? Maybe I was having a mind blip, a random window into Alzheimer's or something. I washed my face, gave myself a slap, and did 2 shots of Crown Royal. After 5 minutes...
So specific.
I know. And also a weird solution to the problem.
Yeah.
But, after 5 minutes of building up the courage, I opened my door to take one last look outside. No sooner had I removed the slide lock than I heard Tony's voice. Iggy, how you doing? He was standing right outside, keys out,
Ew.
ready to enter his Unit 13, smiling at me with a small, jovial grin. He had to be close to 7 feet tall. At least that's what he looked like in this low-ceilinged hallway.
I feel like he used like a specific NBA player as inspo for this.
Yeah. I can picture it. Yep. Somebody, basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
He was looking lankier than before, with smaller eyes. Tony, hey! I tried to sound unperturbed by all my revelations. I swallowed a lump. Sorry for, teasing you earlier. Teasing? Oh no, I thought it was a good act. Very funny. As if I never existed. Really funny idea. I gripped my doorknob tight and tried to act as casual as I could. Play along, my acting coach would say. Play along and see what your partner says. How long do you think we've known each other, Tony? I tried to give him a friendly look. Feels like ages, right? Tony's smile widened as if he had been expecting this question. He drew a circle in the air around me with an exaggerated finger. I have known you since you were a little child, Ignatius. Ever since you were born, 30 miles away. I scoffed, alarmed by this accurate information and by his strange behavior.
Ew.
Tony was putting on a deeper voice, too. Why? Was he doing a bit now? Since I was a child? I asked. Yes, since you were a child. You were inseminated, it says, on July 14th. And you broke your mother's amniotic sac exactly 9 months later. Tony's
I'm literally imagining Luka Doncic.
I don't know who that is.
I will show you a photo. Okay. He's like this kind of young. He's like 6'6". I think he used to play for the Mavericks. I think he got traded. I don't know where he plays now, but I just sent it to you. I'm just looking at this guy and I'm like, is that you, Tony?
That. Could be. That's a very good visual for Tony.
Funny. Yeah.
Yep, I can see it. Okay, born 9 months later, Tony's voice grew lower, speaking from his stomach. You first recognized yourself in the mirror on December 12th, and 21 months after that, you learned that all things die and that death is permanent. I staggered a little, trying to stay composed. Is this a weird joke, Tony? Who said joke? Tony dropped his pretend deep voice and looked at me with earnest seriousness I wasn't expecting. I am taking over your place in this community. You have 2 days to move.
What?
My hand cramped from my grip on the knob. What? 2 days, Iggy. 2? Yes, I am a, observer. I have observed many lives on Earth. Yours looked fun. Lots of friends, close by families with young children, all in one apartment. Perfect life for Skevdok. And I'm realizing now that I didn't look that up
The
to
fuck is
see.
Skevduck?
I was wondering if it was like some folklore
Like a
thing.
demon or something?
Yeah, but it doesn't come up. So I guess that's what I'm going with based on the
Okay.
rest of the story.
Yeah.
Um, he says, Skev, my name. You can tell whoever you want. No one will believe you. I'm already here. Nothing you can do. I was shocked. I didn't quite know who or what I was talking to, but these were literally the words that came out of his mouth. Why did you bring up young children? I will swap them eventually, too. No one will notice or care, just like with you. It might have been the hallway light, but his neck and limbs appeared to have lengthened ever so slightly. His eyes looked smaller, too. I took
Like a,
another step back and
like
prepared
a
to close the
bug.
door. Yeah, just like a praying mantis or something.
Yeah, kinda.
Yep. I was overwhelmed by this, by him, by this whole entire evening. But Tony kept talking, pointing directly at my face. I'm replacing you, Ignatius. They will start to forget you tomorrow, and the day after they will forget you completely. If you're not gone by day 3, you will die.
Oh,
I let go of the doorknob. My hand was
jeez.
shaking too much to hold it. I brought my hands up to my face, and that's when Tony burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. He slapped the wall beside him. It's all a joke, Iggy. All a joke. He draped a hand over my shoulder and gave a squeeze. It was surprisingly hard. It held me quite firmly in place. Pretty good, right? I'm a good actor, right? I could barely bring myself to look up at his face. When I did, I swear it seemed like his head was towering down from the ceiling, like he was leering at me from the sky. Yes, I mumbled, you're a good actor. Very convincing. His pinhole eyes glimmered in their sockets. Good. I think so too. The next day, I called a ride share and GTFO'd. I had lived in that building for nearly 11 years, and I thought I would live there for
Oh,
11 more, but there was no way in hell I could stay after that night. I don't know how Tony was doing it, but he was draining me, replacing me. I could feel it across my scalp the whole night. My memories with Jess, Marcello, Dee Dee, and everyone else, they were fuzzier than before, fainter. It was like Tony was scooping them out and remolding them into his own. My Uber arrived at 5:13 a.m., and I shoved 2 heavy suitcases inside and did not look back. I spent the next
what
month and a
the
half, yeah, at a hotel on the opposite side of town before I found a new place. My family all thought I was having a midlife crisis or something, and I leaned into it and told them I was. I said I wanted to try living downtown, meet some new people, give myself a refresh. It seemed to be in line with turning 41. And maybe that's exactly what my life needed. Fast forward past a couple successful auditions and open mic stand up sets and managed to meet my new partner, Amelia. She's really nice. It didn't take long for her to ask about all the photos on my Facebook of the old apartment. 10 years of memories in that old 12-plex, Evergreen Pines. At least I think that's what it was called. I couldn't remember the name really, or the address.
Hmm.
I was caught off guard when she presented me with all the pictures on her iPad. There was a photo of me grilling sausages for some small kid who did not look familiar. There was a photo of me having a beer pong competition with a woman in a Molson brewing hat. There was a photo of me singing at some karaoke thing surrounded by people, including that sausage kid and the woman in the brewing hat. After 10 minutes, it got really embarrassing. Amelia was a little offended that I wasn't remembering anyone from before. She accused me of trying to lie about my past or something. I told her that wasn't the case. Amelia, I'm serious. I know there was a reason I left my old apartment, but I can't remember. That's ridiculous. It's true, I swear. Of course, the more I started talking about it, the more I actually did remember a little. Despite forgetting
Mm.
all my past neighbors and friends from that apartment, I did not forget about Tony. In
Of
fact,
course not.
Tony, yeah, how could you? Tony was the dark reminder of the whole event. By remembering him, I was able to rewrite this story with pseudonyms and my best guess as to what my life was like before. He was the one who took that all away. But Amelia didn't need to know that. I bit my lip and cheekily murmured, I really don't remember anything. She stared at me with an unimpressed face, totally blasé. Oh my god, Iggy, are you doing a bit? I can't recall anything at all. Right, okay, very creepy. So do you remember these people or not? I proceeded to nod and improvise names and backstories for everyone she pointed to. I told her that these were all very close friends, but we sort of drifted apart, and I didn't see them anymore. She seemed to buy it. There was just one last photo of me that caught her attention. A photo at a Super Bowl party where I was holding a plate of nachos above my head. Why do you... I'm recording. Sorry about that.
Quiet, Blort.
Did you hear what he said?
No.
No. Okay, good. We'll leave it that way.
Okay, you have to text it to me because now
Okay.
I want to know.
Okay. Let's see. So she seemed to buy it. There's a photo of him at the Super Bowl party. She says, why do you look so weird in this one? My neck looked longer. My eyes looked smaller. I knew that was not me in the photo. I have no idea how I uploaded it onto my own Facebook account. It didn't make sense, but I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to move on to close this chapter. I deleted the photo. I've never brought up my old apartment again. So, who's Tony?
What
happened?
Fuck? That is so... Who's Tony? What happened? That is so creepy. I was trying to find anything that was like that spelling, and I can't find anything.
I know. I think it must be made up, but yeah,
how's
my
it
guess...
spelled?
Skevdok.
Okay, that's like how I spelled it. But yeah, that's really weird.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if it is in a Slavic language, but it's just like Americanized or anglicized, so we can't find it. Like the spelling's really off. I'm gonna go like pouring through like folklore later.
Yeah.
Trying to find it.
Spooky.
Okay, ready for another Easter one?
Yes.
All right. This one is from Erutius, Erutious. And this is, my town celebrates Easter the old way. People often say that Easter is religious in nature, that it's something Christian or pagan in origin, and I'm here to tell you that it's something far different than you've ever dreamed. I grew up in a small town in northern Europe, one of those picturesque little villages that you see on postcards, the kind with lots of farms, a cute little main street area that's all cobbled stone and brick buildings, little downtown with an open-air market and lots of hardworking people in rustic clothes with various farming implements herding animals to and fro. I lived above one of those shops with my parents. They ran a general store, and I helped out until I left when I was 16. They were good people, and I don't think they really agreed with what happened. They weren't the kind of people who fell in with religious fervor. But they understood its purpose, the purpose it serves for the community, and they participated, even if unwillingly. The celebration of Lady, we're going to call her Oster. It's spelled Eostre. Oster. Was not as old as the village itself, but almost. On Easter Sunday, 12 of the town's children were pushed from their homes and led into the square in the middle of town. Their ages were between 6 and 15, and the event was always preceded by merriment before the night itself. There was a carnival that week. Feasts were eaten, gifts were given, and then the night that everyone dreaded inevitably came. I don't remember much about those nights. I remember the underlying dread I felt as I sat in my room. I remember the silent tears I cried without knowing why. I remember the relief I felt when I'd awaken the next morning to see that it was daylight again. That, and the screams. I still hear the screams sometimes when the nightmares come. To understand why this happens, you'd first have to understand Our Lady. Our Lady Auster was once a hallowed deity. She was the goddess of dawn, and the rays she brought had nourished the land for the founders of the region. Auster had shown them where to go, where to plant, and the bountiful harvests made the towns rich and the cities prosper. They praised her for her generosity and gifts, but she told them too late that there was a price to be paid. You see, she hadn't told them what else lay in that valley. There's a cave near Father's Glen, a huge dank maw that breeds nothing but shadows and pain. I love how this person writes. Those who go in never come out, and it's where the children of Auster reside. Legend says that once they were birds, creatures of the wind who were free to fly as they would. Auster turned them into hares, an animal more fitting for a season of fertility and growth. The hares were pleased with this, now free to explore the land they had seen from above, but over time they grew to hate the children of men, who often hunted them and their smaller cousins. When the people moved into the valley, they began to hunt the rabbits for food, which infuriated the hares. The valley was said to be thick with rabbits and hares at one point, but the humans were in for a surprise as they filled their stew pots. The hares began to come out at night to hunt the men, and many of the hares and the humans died as a result. The ensuing skirmishes were good for no one, so Auster stepped in. In her infinite wisdom, Auster brokered a trade, a contest, if you will. If you would hunt the humans, then give them the same chance you have. For one night, the weakest of them will hide and run, from sunset to sunrise, and any you catch will be your prize. Once a year, you will send 12 of your young ones, one for each month you have hunted the hares, and they will search for them. If they find them, they may take them back to their cave. Those not found will be free to go about their lives until called upon again. My hares will remain below the ground for every other night, never to hunt a human under my protection. This is my decree, and all shall abide. And so it has been from that day on. I was chosen only once to participate in the festival. The town wasn't huge, maybe 30 or 40 children of the desired age at any given time, and it wasn't uncommon for a name to come out of the kettle more than once. My friend Maria was chosen 4 times, but managed to hide until dawn on all but the last. A sibling could go in your place, and sometimes they did. One year, I remember a boy named Alan went in his sister's place and was supposed to have killed 3 of the hares before they got him. I never saw the bodies. Everything was cleaned up, as it always was when we all came out the next day. Most years, I just sat in my room with the doors and windows locked as I cried into my arms and tried not to listen to the children below as they screamed. Most years, only a few lucky kids came back. I was fortunate enough to come back when I was selected. I suppose I wouldn't be telling you this story otherwise. I was 8 when I went out to do my duty, as my mother put it. I was scared, but a part of me just couldn't believe I would die or never come back. I was young, and all children believe themselves to be immortal, I guess. Hell, even the thought of rabbits coming to get me made me giggle. I could just imagine little bunnies with torches and pitchforks hopping along as they tried to catch a bunch of terrified children. Even as the nun told us about it in the local school, I giggled a little, earning a smack with the ruler for my insolence. You won't think it's so funny when you're in the street some night and they come for you. I saw my father's face when my name was drawn, and I couldn't understand his terror. I had heard the screams, of course, but I believed that they were just people putting on. I knew that people got killed, but I couldn't believe it. Why would my parents send me out to do something that could get me killed? My parents loved me, and I knew they wouldn't want me to come to harm. I was confident that this was like Father Christmas or the Tooth Fairy, just a bit of harmless hogwash for children. I had never actually known any of the children that didn't return, so it was like nothing had changed from year to year. How small my world was, and how frightening it seems now that I was so naive. So I sat at the feasts, I played the games, and I enjoyed myself that week. I saw some of the other children who'd been chosen, and while some looked scared, others clearly didn't grasp what was in store either. They joked about rabbit hunts and bringing carrots to feed the bunnies. We all laughed and talked about how brave we would be, but none of us really understood what was about to happen to us. Then came Sunday night, and I think it all became real to me. My mother called me into the kitchen just as the sun began to sparkle at the edge of the horizon. She presented me with some gifts for the night. She had bought me a pair of soft black pants and a very tight shirt. She put a pair of soft shoes on my feet, and I could feel their delicate material hug me gratefully. Listen to me very closely, because what I tell you might save your life. On the night I was chosen to participate, I hid in the horse shed near the drawbridge. The smell of hay seemed to make me harder to find, and if you bury yourself deep in the stack, you should be safe until morning. Don't try to fight them. Don't be careless. Don't be brash. Just run and hide and survive. I love you. Your father loves you, and we wish there was any other way but this one. We wish there was some way to help you, my father said suddenly, coming in from his study and startling me, but this is all we can offer you. Good luck. We hope to see you in the morning. Like, so dark. What the
Yeah, we
fuck?
hope to see you.
Yeah.
Scary.
Then they hugged me, both of them enveloping me in their shared embrace before leading me to the door and showing me out into the semi-darkness. I walked to the square, unafraid, as the gas lights flared cheerfully. Why should I be afraid? This was my home. I had run over these streets with my friends. We had played by the fountain in the square. We had gone to the market and bought candy and toys with our allowance, and we had gossiped and giggled as we walked to school. Nothing here could hurt us. Nothing here could threaten us as the warm stones of our hometown wrapped us in a cocoon of safety. This was just a game that grown-ups played, and it would prove as hollow as the stories of the boogeyman or the goblins who came to take away naughty children. I could see the others as they filtered into the square, but there was no quiet chatter or laughter now. As the sun set, casting the last of its light on the town, we heard the bell toll and saw the mayor come out on the balcony that overlooked the square. He looked resplendent in his long coat, his shoes with the buckles gleaming in the dancing torchlight as he stared down at us from his high perch. He looked sorry to see us there, but resolute in his decision. He would carry this out, and then he would step back inside so he didn't have to watch the results of his actions. We give thanks to Auster for a bountiful harvest, for the valley where we live, and for the gifts she has given us generations ago. We ask her to watch over these little ones as they hide from her children. May she take pity on them and let them come home again. He said more, going on for what felt like hours, but my head had turned from him as I heard the noise. It was the harsh flop of two large feet, the echoing thump of heavy footsteps, and as I looked, I saw them. There were 3 of them, all tall and lithe, with arms and legs too long to be human. They didn't so much walk as they galumphed, as if walking on 2 legs was never something that would become normal for them. As the mayor droned on, I saw one of them become too eager and step close to the edge of the alley they were hiding in. His fur was snowy white, a speckling of brown making him look as though he had freckles from his chest to his nose. Around his neck and across his shoulders, to my surprise, were feathers, and I remembered suddenly that they had once been birds. His mouth had a distinctly beakish look, and I felt cold dread creep into me as this creature hulked at the ready. It held a delicate-looking flint knife in its too large hand, and my humor at the thought of being hunted by bunnies was now gone. These were not the cute hopping creatures you saw in the glen. These were like the trolls and goblins we were told stories about, old and mean and utterly devoid of human kindness. As the sun sets, I beg you all to flee. Go now before they are set loose by that ancient promise. Some of the others had seen them too, and I was suddenly aware that the press around me was thinning. Children of all ages were running, fleeing into the corridors and alleys we all knew so well. I was running too, leaving behind the few who still gaped at the mayor as he moved away. They would give me time to run, as the creatures would find them first. Their screams were high and terrified, but mercifully short. I ran for the stables just like Mother had told me to, but the hares didn't stay in the square for long. The streets echoed with those strange hopping thuds, and I could hear them as they caught others. The children were easy to track. They wept, their feet thudded loudly, their breathing was much too deep, and the hares seemed to locate them easily as I ran for my life. Unlike the others, my shoes seemed to whisper over the cobblestones. They were soft, hugging my feet like a second skin, and though the night was breezy, I never heard my clothes so much as flap. I was like a shadow as I traversed the streets of my home, and when I saw the bridge looming up in the distance, I put on an extra burst of speed. When I heard that flapping, galumphing sound of those wide, flat feet, I threw myself against a nearby wall and stayed as quiet as possible. I could hear it as its feet slapped at the hard cobblestones, its nose twitching as it tasted air that likely stank of humanity. The sound of its twitching nose made my skin crawl, the noise akin to bugs as they nest beneath a loose cobblestone. I put a hand over my mouth as my fearful breathing threatened to give me away. I couldn't tell you how long I stood there, time seeming to creep by as the creature looked and sniffed. Fear time is always different from actual time, and the stretch of seconds can take decades in that moment of extreme terror. Then mercifully, he left, and I ran like the rabbit I had become for the stables. They were empty, the horses taken elsewhere, but the hay trough still remained. I plunged into the itchy depths, making myself into a ball as I shuddered at the bottom of the pile. The clothes my mother had given me were long-sleeved and legged, so I only had to cover my face so the itchy depths wouldn't give me away. The scent of hay was strong, and the dust that coated me made me stifle a sneeze. I had to be silent. I couldn't do anything to give myself away. I lay at the bottom of that trough for hours, my adrenaline running high and my ears straining for the smallest sound. I heard them when they came in the first time. There had to be at least two of them, their feet slapping at the cobblestones as they searched the stalls. I heard them turn over tubs, open closets where only horse tack waited, and grumble in their strange language when they found nothing. When one of them came towards the hay trough, I thought I was done for. It dug through the hay, pulling handfuls away as it searched, and I pressed myself as flat against the bottom as I could manage. I had to stuff my fist into my mouth, careful not to rustle the hay, for fear that I would begin screaming at the thought of those creatures so close to me. My fist was sweaty and the taste of hay and dust likely to choke me, but I held absolutely still as I threatened to uncover my hiding spot. When it sneezed, the dust getting into its nose, I almost sighed in relief. It scooped out a few more handfuls before stopping, sneezing again as it moved away. Those deep thumps took it out of the horse stall, and I was left to shiver and shake as my adrenaline coursed fresh through me. Somehow, as the adrenaline ebbed and my body began to ache, I fell asleep at the bottom of the trough. When I awoke, it was daytime, and the night of terror was at an end. My mother found me, hay still clinging to me as I walked towards home. She pulled me close and kissed my hair, thanking Oster for my safe return. Given that Oster had been responsible for what had happened last night, it seemed a bit silly to thank her. That night was 15 years ago, and I've since moved from my small rural town. Hamburg makes the place I was born in look like a dirt track, and after college, I found work as a foreman in a textile mill. My parents call me once a week, sending letters in this age of email instead of getting with the times. And I've settled down now, had a child of my own, and our conversations always seem to turn to when will they get to meet their grandson. And my answer is always the same: when you come to Hamburg to see him. After what I've witnessed in that place, after sitting in my room for 8 years with the knowledge of what was going on outside the walls of my home, I will be damned if I let my son anywhere near their warren or those snuffling monstrosities. So when you hear of the resurrection, as you bite the ears off your chocolate bunny, count yourself lucky that you live without the fear that was such a part of my childhood. Remember that somewhere there is a bunny that would love nothing more than to bite the ears off of you.
That's really kind of like Hunger Games with bunnies.
Yeah, I know. Scary Easter bunny Hunger Games.
Wow.
How creepy is that?
That is really creepy. Very well written, too.
Yes, very good.
Love
All right,
it.
hit me, sister.
Okay. Do you want another one, or should we save
Yeah.
it for next scary stories?
No,
Okay,
let's do it.
We're already at an hour, so hopefully people aren't
Oh, well.
sick of me.
They can always pause it and come back. They're not sick of you.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I might paraphrase this one slightly.
Yeah.
This one's a little gruesome.
Oh, okay. I'm here for gruesome.
Yep. This is written by Let's Split Up, is their username. And it's titled, My Housemate is Dead, but Everyone is Pretending She's Not. And this one I found on the No Sleep, of course. It's gotten like all the upvotes and like little awards in the last month. This is only from 18 days ago, so we're fresh.
Love that.
To it. Yep.
Real fresh.
So, has anyone ever been in a situation like this before? So anyway, it all started last week. I live with 4 roommates, Jess, Lily, Dane, and Miguel. Lily is the one who I'm pretty sure is dead, even though my housemates all say she's pretending.
Oh my god, first, what?
So bizarre.
Bizarre.
At first, I did think she was pretending. It's an old trick of hers. She's super introverted, and sometimes if she's overwhelmed or just doesn't want to talk, she'll pretend to be asleep, which I love.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes. We call it her playing possum.
You're gonna start
Which
doing
is-
that, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're just like,
Yep.
oh,
Sorry.
I can't go out. Oh, sleeping.
Sometimes I do feel like I might have narcolepsy, but
I
it's a
mean,
different story.
I don't
Not
know. It
actually.
seems related. Like
Yeah.
energetically drained.
Yes. Yeah. But there
That
are times,
happens.
like Dave always talks about it, I can fall asleep in like 30 seconds. And
We talked about
sometimes it
that when I
just
was there, he and
sneaks up.
I.
Yeah. I just immediately fall asleep.
I can be like that, but I also can have like a bit of what's that called?
Restlessness.
When you can't sleep?
Insomnia.
I wanted to say amnesia, and it's definitely not that. Insomnia, thank you.
You just had amnesia for that
A
word,
bit
though.
of amnesia.
So, just a bit.
Gourd.
Yeah. Anyway, so she's playing possum. But
All
now
right.
she's been playing possum for nearly a week.
Jesus!
Her
This
eyes
is
are
dead.
open. Yes. Her eyes are open. Her face is grayish white and has been turning kind of purplish. Her body is bloating. And I saw a fly land on her eyeball. She hasn't changed out of her panda onesie since she started playing possum last Monday. She smells like a corpse smells, like rotting meat. And
Oh
that panda onesie, that panda suit is so gross. I'm pretty sure she died in it last Monday and everyone is just in some kind of denial. But does that even make sense? I mean, how is it 3 other people are all saying she's alive and that I'm delusional? Is it just some bizarre social experiment? I keep waiting for some reality TV host to pop out from behind the potted plant and a hidden audience to start laughing or clapping. I feel like I'm coming unglued from reality. I'm sitting on the sofa as I write this, by the way, sitting here looking across the TV room at Lily, who is propped up in the same chair she died in, eyes wide open, flesh bloated, and skin just ... I think she's going to start leaking into that chair.
Ew!
Horrible.
Gross.
But let me rewind to last Sunday. Sunday is when we hit the old lady's cat. It wasn't on purpose. We'd all had a bit too much to drink, and I was driving, and Dane was in the passenger seat, and Jess and Miguel and Lily were in the back. And the cat, it just raced out into the road, solid black, and then there was a thump. Yeah, no. Not Binks.
Not Binks.
And there was a thump. My stomach flipped. And then this old woman came out of her house and saw her cat had been hit and screamed and screamed. Lily told her that she should have kept her cat inside, not let it wander near a busy road. Anyway, long story short, I think that lady was a witch and hexed us for killing her cat. More specifically, I think she hexed Lily. I mean, I don't think, I know, because the woman said some words in a strange language. We all called her crazy and drove home. So that was Sunday night. And I'll start paraphrasing that Monday is the first morning that our narrator sees Lily in her possum pose. Miguel is sitting beside her playing a video game, and he's like, yeah, she's just feeling sick. And Lily said, or sorry, the narrator said,
eyes open.
Yeah, exactly. Just a zombie.
Gross.
Yeah. So the narrator's like, I hope you feel better. Lily doesn't say anything. She's like, hey, Lily, I'm saying I hope you feel better. And Miguel snaps at her and is like, just chill. She doesn't feel well. So
oh my God.
That kind
Homie, she needs a doctor.
Yeah. But to them, like, apparently Lily has depression. Like, she has depressive episodes and has had them in the past. So all the other roommates keep telling the narrator she's just having a rough time. She's not feeling well. Taking a shower and getting out of bed or whatever are hard for her right now.
Blinking, also hard.
Yeah.
Breathing.
Blinking, eating, getting a
Yeah.
fly to not land on your eyeball.
Gross.
So yeah, they are all just acting like it's not normal, but that she's alive is what
Okay.
they're all
Nerd
convinced.
vibe.
Yep. So finally, the narrator calls the police, actually, to do a wellness check. They come and they're like, it's fine. Like,
What?
they also don't think she's dead. So
What the fuck?
the narrator wrote an update now, saying she got into a huge fight with her roommates about having called the police, and finally she decides to take action. Says, last night I bundled up the corpse and drove out to the woods. There's these high bluffs out there. I
Oh,
tossed the
God.
corpse down the rocks. I came back home and cleaned up around the house and put the chair out on the curb and finally went to bed. In the morning, I woke up to find Jess having a panic attack. She demanded to know where Lily was. I told her Lily left, and Jess accused me of lying. Miguel seemed relieved. While Jess went out in her car to go searching for Lily, Miguel told me he could finally breathe again, and that it really had smelled bad in here, and someone needed to do something. He said he hoped Lily got the help she needed, but that this wasn't the right place for her, and she probably needed inpatient treatment. I refrained from telling him that I thought it was way too late for a hospital.
Well, yeah, definitely
Anyway.
now, given you
Yes.
yeeted her off a cliff.
Yeah, she's poor Lily. She's out of here.
Yikes.
Yeah. Anyway, her body being gone should be a good thing, except I think the hex is now hitting the rest of us because
Oh,
Dane,
no.
he's always a late sleeper. He didn't wake up through Jess's freak out or my conversation with Miguel, but now it's afternoon and I just came out and found him sitting next to Miguel on the sofa playing video games. Only he's not actually playing. His eyes stare straight ahead of him, his hands don't move. There's a first-person shooter on the screen, and Miguel keeps telling Dane he needs to step up his game. But Dane is literally doing nothing, seeing nothing. I think he's like Lily was last Monday. Like
Oh,
the hex
shit.
hit him, and now he's dead, but nobody can see it. I don't know if I should wait for his body to rot, or if I should just take him out sooner. If this plays out the same way, Miguel won't stop pretending Dane is just fine. Jess will come home and also believe that he's still alive. Even the police will believe it. Why am I the one the hex didn't hit? Why am I the one who can see that they're dead? And that story is scary, obviously, on its own, but then I was reading the comments, and
Oh, God.
that scared me more, because this first one says, maybe you were the only one affected by the hex. You were the one driving, the one who hit the cat. Maybe the hex is making you think your friends are dead and you're killing them. Which is such a good theory.
That's such a good take. That's really creepy.
Yeah. Which I feel like that's probably what's happening.
Accurate. Ew,
yeah,
dude.
Very scary. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know this is a long episode, but I have one more that I really want to share.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it.
This is from 11 Velociraptors. We're ending on an Easter one, because gotta do it.
Yeah, perfect.
So it's titled, My Grandmother Still Participates in Our Easter Tradition After Her Death. To most, my Babs was the meanest old Russian lady they've ever met.
Babs.
But to me, she was the best... Babs. She was the best... I guess babushka.
Yeah.
She was the best guardian a kid could have asked for. My mom and dad had me long before they were emotionally or financially ready to be parents, and so my babushka stepped up and raised me more or less on her own. Though Babs had grown up with wealth, her family lost everything in World War II. She, like many European immigrants searching for a better future in the immediate aftermath of the war, came to the United States in the late 40s. She made the long trek overseas with my mother, who was 2 years old at the time, and managed to make a life for the two of them despite having few connections, little money, and only basic understanding of the English language. I wish I knew more about her story, but she was always reluctant to talk about her past. My mother said that Babs never spoke Russian in public and kept all the details of her life in the Soviet Union to herself, out of fear that the KGB would show up at her doorstep. Yes, this was an irrational fear, but I think it's hard to understate the influence of that particular organization on anyone of Soviet descent in the mid 20th century. Babs had a lot of strange habits, and while I don't presume to know enough about mental health disorders to diagnose anyone, I do wonder sometimes if she had a trauma related obsessive compulsive disorder. Every night when she put me to bed, she walked around our small house twice to ensure every door and window was locked. Every tchotchke on the fireplace mantle had to be in its exact place. If I moved one of her matryoshka dolls 3 millimeters to the side, not only would she notice, but she would be greatly distressed. She also had a habit of knocking on things, a kind of nervous tic that doubled as a self soothing mechanism. She always knocked thrice, and always with a pause between the second and third knock. I asked her once what the pause was for, and she explained that 3 knocks in quick succession was ungodly, a way of mocking the Holy Trinity. I thought this was ridiculous, but it was also so on brand for my superstitious, old fashioned grandmother that I couldn't help but think of it fondly. When I was 12 or so, I started knocking back when I heard her do it around the house. In doing so, it transformed from a nervous tic to a kind of call and response between us, a secret code that I could share with my favorite person in the world. It was only when I was in my early teenage years that Babs began to teach me about her culture. She taught me basic Russian phrases, although she always complained that my pronunciation was hopeless. She taught me a few Orthodox prayers and traditions, and my personal favorite, she taught me how to cook some of her favorite dishes. My favorite dish was kulich. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Delicious sweet bread that maybe, but it's spelled Kulich. I don't know. A sweet bread. Yeah, a sweet bread that we baked every Easter. Easter was special for me not only because of the dishes that Babs and I would make together, but also because of a very special, let's call it, occurrence that I was sometimes privy to on the night of Holy Saturday. On the night before Easter, when I was 14 years old, Babs invited me to sit at the rickety dining room table with her around midnight and light a few candles. She always seemed to have a bunch of long, thin candles around the house. I'm not really sure where she got them from or if they had any cultural significance, but I remember being enchanted by the intricate engravings in the wax. She lit 5 that night and then told me something in a very serious tone. You can listen, Kolya, but you cannot answer. I didn't understand what she meant at first, but I nodded anyway, sitting across the table from her in comfortable silence. After a while of sitting and watching the dancing flames, I thought I heard a whisper. I looked up, giving Babs a questioning look, but she just gave me a small smile. When I next heard the whisper, I saw that her mouth hadn't moved at all. I know what some of you are going to say, that any form of contact with spirits is dangerous and unholy, and I'm not here to convince you of anything, but I can tell you that nothing about that night felt sinful. The energy in that dark little room was pleasant, almost reassuring. The voices were soft and strangely familiar, even though I couldn't place where I'd heard them before. I counted 5 in total, 2 feminine and 3 masculine, 4 speaking purely in Russian and 1 speaking in what I thought was French. The flames snuffed themselves out, some only after a few minutes, and some after almost half an hour. Although the candles were unscented, the room smelt of honey after all of the flames had extinguished themselves. Babs stood up and turned on the lights afterwards. She smiled brightly at me, her eyes watery with happy tears. Who were they, Babs? I asked her as we cleaned up. 5 who I loved who are no longer with us, she answered. You did a very good job. We can listen, but it is not good for us to speak. Again, we will do it next year, and I will teach you how if you like. Afterwards, she sent me off to bed. I fell asleep that night with a lightness in my chest and the promise of warm kulich in the morning. My babushka passed away on January 3rd of this year, and I've been a wreck ever since. I'm ashamed of how emotional I've been, especially considering that Babs lost her entire family and was still one of the strongest, most stoic people I've ever known. I tried to follow her example and remain strong in the face of adversity, but I feel as though I've lost both of my parents, and God knows my actual parents have been no help. Although I've lived with my fiancé for the past few years, we live in an apartment close to the house that I grew up in, and still saw Babs often. Unsurprisingly, Babs left the house to me and not my parents. At first, the thought of selling it seemed like an act of betrayal, but it's too small for my fiancé and I, our dogs, and the children we're hoping to have one day soon. I visit the house every once in a while to sort through her possessions and figure out what kind of repairs it needs, but the place feels so empty without her that I'm never able to stay for long. A few days ago, though, I had the idea to spend Holy Saturday in the house. My girlfriend isn't religious, so she wouldn't mind being left alone for the night, and I thought that doing so might finally bring me the closure that I needed. Yesterday, I showed up to the house in the early evening. I had one bag with clothes and blankets and another with a few sentimental items. For a few hours, I just walked around the rooms, examining every little crack in the wall and chip in the wooden floors. Even mostly empty, the house still overflowed with memories, and I consumed them desperately, knowing that someday they might be lost to me forever. And every so often, I reached out to rap my knuckles against one of the walls or floors. At around midnight, after setting up my sleeping bag in my childhood bedroom, I made my way to the dining room, which was one of the few rooms in the house to still have most of its furniture. I had brought some Coolidge in my bag, which I snacked on as I set up the old wooden table with the items I'd brought. A nesting doll, a photo of myself, my mom, and Babs, and the handwritten eulogy I'd delivered at her funeral, much of which I had written in Russian. I also placed upon the table a long, thin candle that I'd found while sorting through Bab's belongings. Then I lit the candle, took a seat, and listened. Nothing happened. No whispers, no self-extinguishing of the candle, nothing. An hour passed, and I had finished my Coolidge, and the candle had burned itself down to a nub. But instead of giving up and calling it a night, I snuffed the flame myself and lit another. I didn't want to go just yet. Again, I waited, straining my ears and silently imploring Babs to speak, but there was only silence. And when candle number 2 had burned itself down to nothing, I extinguished it and procured from my bag the final candle I had brought with me. One last try, I told myself. One last try, and then I'll go to sleep. I lit the candle and waited. Just after 3:30, I realized that I was beginning to nod off. Remembering that I hadn't plugged my phone into the portable charger I had brought with me, I rose from my chair and quickly took a stroll to my old bedroom. I reached into my bag, pulling out the charger. "Kolya?" Someone called out. "Yeah?" I called back, and then froze. I had responded without thinking, acting completely on instinct. That had been Bab's voice. I was certain of it. The sound should have filled me with delight, but instead something felt wrong. The voice had been too loud, nothing like the soft whispers that I remembered from the years past. Along with the strange tone of the voice, there was the fact that I had answered. Though Babs had never told me what would happen if we were to speak back to the voices, I imagined that she wouldn't have just made up a rule for no reason. Slowly, I made my way back towards the dining room, keeping my ears open for the voice. There was no scent of honey, no lightness in my chest, but there was a kind of thickness in the air. I felt vaguely as though someone were pushing down on my shoulders as I cautiously walked back into the dining room. Although I didn't hear anything else, after I turned the corner, I couldn't believe what I saw. Standing on the other side of the dining room table was my grandmother. The room may have been dark, illuminated only by the single candle on the table, but still I could make out her face as clear as day. She stood perfectly still, her eyes never leaving mine as I stepped into the room. I had only ever heard voices on Holy Saturday, never before had I seen an apparition, and never had I expected to see one so perfectly vivid. "Moi mili," she said to me in greeting. Her voice sounded more correct this time, quieter and softer, just like the whispers I'd grown up hearing. "I can't believe it," I said. "I come back for you," she whispered. Her face, her rare smile, the small birthmark under her left eye, it was all exactly as I remembered. Her stance was odd. She was slightly hunched, and her entire posture seemed a bit tense. Something wasn't quite right. "Come back from where, Babs?" "From the kingdom," she said in her matter-of-fact way. I smiled. "Is it beautiful?" She smiled back. "Yes, yes, of course." I looked at the table. The flame of the candle, now burned down to about 2 inches, was standing perfectly straight. When I looked back up, Babs had moved slightly. She seemed more crouched now, her feet planted firmly on the floor and her arms slightly raised. I was reminded suddenly of the posture a predator assumes before it pounces. "Babs?" I asked. She only smiled in response. I reached out to the wooden tabletop. She hesitated, and for the briefest moment her smile fell away, and a very different face stared at me from the edge of the candlelight. Something sharp, unfamiliar, angry, and she reached out an arm. I leaned forward and blew out the candle, plunging the room into darkness. I backed away from the table. It took a few seconds for my eyes to adjust, but once they did, I could see that there was no one else with me in the dining room. I stood there for a moment, unsure of whether or not the connection had been severed, before the house itself answered. The windows rattled, the floor began to shake, and the house erupted with noise. Furious banging arose from every corner of the house, so loud and widespread it sounded as though there were hundreds of people inside the walls. I ran for the front door, thankful that the house was so small it only took me a few strides to reach the handle. I threw the door open and raced through the streets, glancing over my shoulder only after I crossed the threshold. There was a humanoid figure standing in the corridor, so tall that even hunched over at the waist, its upper back and the top of its head were pressed up against the ceiling. It wore a white gown, shaped and styled almost like a wedding dress, yet tattered and full of black stains. Thick white hair poured from its scalp and pooled on the floor next to its filthy, claw-like feet. It had one thin arm braced against the ceiling. The other held a thin, circular slab of painted wood over its face, the surface decorated in the style of my grandmother's matryoshka dolls. The strained expression was nothing like the dolls, however. Instead, the face bore a look of utter terror, its mouth open in a silent scream, its eyes so wide they were tearing at the corners, sending 4 trails of blood down its cheeks. I didn't miss the way that the 2 streaks of blood along the left side of the face perfectly framed a birthmark under the doll's eye. The creature's shoulders shook up and down rapidly as though it were laughing at me as I fled. Once I made it to the empty street, I looked back at the house once more. There was no figure in the hallway this time, and the shaking, which had been so violent I was certain the house was going to collapse, grew fainter and fainter until the house was still once again. The commotion had awoken one of my previous next door neighbors, who allowed me to use their phone to call my fiance. Though I have no one to confirm what happened inside of the house, I'm somewhat vindicated by the fact that the neighbors felt the tremor as well. I returned the next day, in the daylight, to retrieve my possessions and the last of Bab's things. In addition to seeking spiritual guidance, I've decided to sell the house. At first, I thought I couldn't do so in good conscience until I had an exorcist take a look at the house. But the 3 quick knocks, with no break, I heard on my headboard last night made me realize that doing so would be pointless. After all, whatever I saw isn't after the house. It's after me. Ooh!
Scared? Yeah. Whoa.
The 3 quick knocks.
Yeah.
Demons! It's a demon!
That was such a good way to portray that. Like,
Yeah.
something's wrong when the knock,
Yeah.
their special knock
Yeah.
wasn't right. Ooh,
Totally.
That's so scary.
Oh!
Oh.
Happy Easter, bitches!
Yeah. Happy Easter. Watch out for
Easter,
chocolate
y'all.
bunnies, regular
Yeah.
bunnies.
Regular bunnies,
Everything.
demons.
Yeah.
Always demons.
Yes.
Always be on the lookout.
Yes.
Okay, well, we'll be back with one more regular episode, and then we're into our 3-part finale for the season, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
We're gonna finish up part 2 of Cursed in the Attic with a little added pizzazz.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And we'll announce our finale theme when we get there.
Yeah.
Gotta leave some element of surprise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we love you guys, and we will see you next week. And send us your scary stories at girlsgonespooky.com or to our email, girlsgonespooky@gmail.com. Please rate and review the pod. Tell your friends. Word of mouth, you know?
Yep.
And until next week, stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.